Quantum Foam, Episode 21, The Concept of Zero.
Quantum Foam. Physics. Physics is at the foundation of all the mathematical principles that guide the heavens. You have to understand physics.
More than likely that's not going to happen, but
Forces which govern the universe. Physics.
we took a small little break from the first 20 episodes. I got the whole concept going and everything, and I got that all edited, track-checked, and released. It should be fairly accurate, pretty damn accurate. Be a few mistakes, I'm sure, but I'm doing this all myself, so you can cut me a little bit of slack. I have literally spent days and hours and weeks and months putting effort into this show so that you can have something to listen to.
Wait a minute. Sometimes we are all wondering who, in particular, you are referring to at certain times throughout the show. It's like, who the hell are you insulting now? But I see that most of that is just joking around. When you are talking about finer, more important points, we are pretty easily able to discern the difference. But I thought I would just bring this up early on this decimal of the Quantum Foam podcast show. Maybe try to work on it a little bit. What do you think?
I would just say, to each their own, for such things as redundant and pointless quarreling. It generally eventually tends to come to no further escalation. These things are simply to make the presentation of one's premise during a spoken exchange of some kind juicy. Just gaslighting you a little bit there, good Sir Dr. Hawking. Now let him go on.
So, what are we going to do for this episode? We finished out the last 10 episodes with pretty sophisticated depths. Well, actually, we just reached upon the breadth of the material. And that is what this whole show is about. Not so much depth, but what it is each episode is a depth, but it's only a brief depth. So while I'm breaching upon some of these depths of the details of academics, it's still only a breadth of the entire subject of science, math, physics, whatever. You could just call it science.
He is still always trying to throw in little bits of information to all them people out there.
And there's Dr. Stephen Hawking. Of course he has an opinion.
Whatever.
So what? He's got to fill in these half-hour podcast episodes with some new and different material. Even if some of it is repeated, who cares? Maybe some people are gonna start with one of the later episodes first. That could be when they first find this thing. But we all definitely recommend starting from the very beginning with episode 1.
Yeah, I guess you are right. You are always right, just like Isaac Newton should be.
You could just call it math, physics, science, whatever. And you know that word was invented in the 19th century when they started actually doing something that wasn't alchemy. Mix some chemicals together and do some wishy-woo shit, and then it makes something. It was 1600. You didn't even know stuff like bacteria. Who knows what you guys knew?
We knew a lot of shit. Don't think that we didn't. But remember that we were just perfecting the grinding and laying techniques of glass in order to fabricate large parabolic lenses to build telescopes. We didn't understand the very small until much later. We were baffled by the fact that we knew that things like gas existed, but we just didn't quite have a full periodic table.
We only know what you guys wrote down that you knew, so us in the future here just keep assuming you guys knew this and that. That is why I'm always trying to find something to verify what was known at the time. I mentioned that before, knowing the year that certain things came out, and the world is fucked. That ain't even funny, dude, but the world is fucked. I don't want to spend any time on that bullshit. The world is fucked. Everybody's heard enough about it.
The world is fucked.
It's just crazy because for this part of this year, I've been at my corporate desk here. The rest of the world now is switching around.
The world is fucked.
And it's very peculiar because
the world is fucked.
It's very odd, but the way the world has turned has literally been molded and custom fitted to my business. And it's like the rest of the world's acting how I act.
The world is fucked.
But not really. And not even.
Are you ever going to get into the subject? What do you even mean the world is switching around?
I'm a night owl. I'm on a computer all day, every day. I don't get on my phone at all because it's a piece of shit, small, shitty computer. There's a lot of people, their only computer is their phone or their tablet or their laptop because it's a piece of shit. Now, I don't even have any of that because it's a piece of shit. All I have is like dozens of desktops. I have like dozens of laptops too, but they're all broke, but I've sold all the ones that work. I got about 3 or 4 that are slow that work. It's not powerful enough for what I want it to do. I don't need that shit. I need to be able to run mainframes. I'm a computational physicist, okay? So I need computer power. I got a terminal into several mainframes that I can use at my leisure. I'm a computational physicist. However, right now I don't have anything that I'm working on that I need calculated, but I will be very soon. That's part of what I'm doing here. I'm taking a break on a lot of that other stuff and putting this together because I'm trying to get some science done here. I don't care about credibility and requirements and prerequisites and other stuff.
No wonder you're taking your sweet time getting on with the topic.
I am at the reins here of this, so this is the way it's going to be until it changes. So for now, this is how it's going to be.
Get back on track. We have an itinerary.
We get into this episode nice and slow. Episode 21 to 30, we're going to be featuring new character. We'll introduce him later, a little bit later here.
Ah, come on. We want to talk to the professor.
Yes, I have a few questions about entanglement. There are issues about decoherence for extrasolar communications capabilities within the satellites that I am working on. You think he could ask Hubble some questions?
He's talking about other stuff right now. Just wait.
We're ready to get back into this. So let's start off nice and easy. I don't want to be doing any complicated Hermitian adjoint operator bullshit stuff from quantum mechanics. Collider shit. Bullshit. We don't need to be getting into the complicated stuff this early on. Bullshit. So each 10, we're still following that, just how I said it last time in Chromaticity, episode 11. And I explained how everything was going to go. I've re-listened to all of them again, 10 hours, and now I know where to go and what to do from here on forward.
Too bad that this decimal of the show has lower quality recordings, but you had to try it out.
So this episode we're talking about just the concept of zero in general. Now I go into a few things, but we need to know what the difference between a zero and a number or integer is. So I want to go over some of this, and since I am the founder of Zeroth Enterprises, and so zero, it was zero at one point. And I must admit, I did copy the dude's name out of the Hackers movie from 1995, Zero Cool, Dade, whatever.
I believe his name was Dade Murphy, also Crash Override, and, as you say, Zero Cool.
Zero Cool. I thought that was the coolest shit in the world.
Zero Cool.
Like, how cool are you? I'm zero cool. What? I just never understood that. That doesn't mean, like, that's awesome. So I've always liked that shit. So, what? By the time I was an adult, I tried to start a company, Zero Enterprises, and some company in Iowa bought it or some shit after I let it go or something, so I had to change everything. What? So from then on, it was Zeroth. Zeroth. Z-E-R-O-T-H. Zeroth. So I thought I'd mention that. Zeroth. The concept of zero here. What are we interested in here that deals with zero? It's a very peculiar thing. I know you've heard of the 1 divided by 0 error. Impossibility. You can't put anything into nothing. But that's when nothing is null and not a placeholder. There are lots of mathematical manipulation techniques that can be done to deal with zeros, and that is what we're doing. I am the zeroth issue with computers and the fact that they're stupid. So the only way to make them smart is to do what I'm doing. Okay, because this is the day and age where you got AIs for everything. AT&T has some TV remote that you talk into and tell them what you want to watch. Something that actually exists like that now. Most of these suck, dude. Cortana, Bixby, Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa. You guys are all dumb, man, because of the technology. And I could go on about that, but I would have had this 10 years ago, but I was waiting on Bluetooth. Come on, Broadcom. No, it wasn't even that. It's just that they didn't integrate Broadcom Bluetooth stuff into everything until now. Until recently, they've been putting Bluetooth into everything where you got these little earbuds. You know, that's the way the phones are in 2035. The rest of the shit, if you need to see anything, you just hologram or something. Why do you need to see a screen when you're just talking? It's just sound, dude. That's why I'm starting here with the sound, because you need sound for visual, no matter if it's virtual, 2D, 1D, whatever. Whatever visual shit you're looking at, you need sound with it. So the sound engine is half of everything. So this is the sound engine, the Zeroth Sound Engine, that is going to supply the audio for the containers for virtual reality when the Internet 3 actually goes up. And we're fully into 2 now, and we're working on 3. So HTML5 and above is 2. But 3 will be some form of a framework, like Bootstrap 4 type shit. There's no reason why not to use intrinsic grid screen resizing technology, because all screens are all different sizes, and now everybody knows that. And so all the software needs to be built to display it properly. And there are still issues across the board.
I have a bunch of ideas on Zero too, Mr. So-called doctor. Some answers to some questions may be harder than others.
Let's get back to the 0 here. 0 is an integer. It is an even number because it's divisible by 2. You can define it a lot of different ways, but we only need to know certain things about this. 0 is an identity element. It doesn't have to do with addition. It's an element. They use this stuff with groups. So 0 over x is equal to 0, but x over 0 can't be defined because remember, there's no inverse. So you can't flip it, can't inverse it, because on the number line, it's 2 grid, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom of the box. The right top curve goes down, close to touches the 0, and then goes to the right. And then close to touches the 0, and then the bottom one goes up the y-axis, bottom left grid here, and then up the y-axis, fully left, fully right, approaches 0. So at each asymptote here, the xy, they don't touch. So this is not in quadrant 2 and 4. It's in quadrant. You don't even need to know all this stuff, but that gives you a visual of what an inverse is, and that can demonstrate that it can be one way and not another. That's what the multiplicative inverse is. That's what that is. So it is a little bit about what it does and what its significance is in set theory and how it relates to maybe some examples like your bank account, like if you want to order something online, or if you're counting down temperature. Now, I'm going to get into temperature a little bit, but...
Excuse me really quick, Doctor. You stop right there. I want to be in damned near every single episode. Don't you think about changing that around again? Kind of like in this episode. But we do want to be in pretty much every single episode somewhere. Anyways, why don't you tell them about that bank thing you mentioned the other day?
Good idea.
No, I'll just briefly touch upon a couple of these. Essentially... multiple things here. Essentially... First of all, or second of all, or I don't know. I guess I'll do the ink first. Essentially, here's the thing about the ink. Putting the calendar, it ain't no thing, man. He does it every single pay period. It's like, I'll buy some chicken. It ain't no thing, man.
I'll buy some ink. Let me buy some red onion rings.
It doesn't matter, man. It gets replenished each time.
Onion rings.
So it's almost like a little mini loan. But it ain't like the ink is not important. Here's the thing. It's $12 at Walmart for a black Epson 220 XL. Here is 2 of them for $9. And I want to see if they're just as good or what if we can continue doing this, because cheaper ink is way better. And we need ink because I just made like a dozen 3-inch buttons, and that's a lot of ink. That's 3-inch diameter surface area in inches. So that's a lot of ink. And so we're low on black ink right now. And he uses toner for his laser printer, which is only black and white. Nope, that's horrible. I command you to go off. But we need ink right now, which is why ordering it, we won't even get it for a week. So hopefully we don't run out before that. I'm sure we will, but chances are I'll be busy doing other stuff. So we won't need to print shit tons, but we may need to print another dozen buttons. Print shit tons. So I'm hoping we even have enough for that. Print shit tons. So this ink needs to get purchased, and I'm hoping we don't have to run to Walmart also, but we need the ink. It doesn't matter about the account. It's not like that's it. It's a revolving account that gets a couple grand a month. So that's the story regarding the ink. Also, that's it. You were going on about...
What are you talking about now? I wanted to know about your plans for setting up the audio communications relay capabilities for the planets in our solar system. Do you remember what we were talking about last night?
You didn't make sense.
What? I was just drunk at the time, but it was good stuff. You know how I like my secret hard alcoholic apple cider. Yes, fucking apples can be thrown around like a ball. Eventually I worked out parabolic math. It isn't that hard. Everybody, parabolic math, parabolic math, parabolic math, parabolic math, parabolic math, parabolic math. We get a lot of shit done while we are straight toasted in the lab. 21st century. Fuck the world.
I can't even remember it now.
You guys are on something, probably still hungover or something else. You started another decimal of the show. We are almost halfway through and you are just sitting there doded off your asses. We need to get back on track and get ready to introduce another very important character of the show.
Okay, but let me do another one.
Maybe one of these days you should also explain what it means to have zero tolerance. We will get into the theme soon enough. Just breaking the ice for the upcoming 10 episodes.
I see.
They will continue to be tough subjects.
Okay,
Make sure to update.
and I'll update. But obviously, this is the midpoint of episode 21, the concept of zero of quantum foam. Quantum foam. Essentially,
Fuck the world.
zero can mean null, which means absence of nothing, according to a computer. Absence of existence. Not there. It don't exist. Nothing. Ain't nothing there. It's empty. It's just,
Oh, that's the empty air of the digital computer.
it's just nothing.
I believe you are referring to what is known as absolute nothingness.
Null. Zero. Nothing. That's different than on an integer real number scale.
Guys, I have some of my own calculations to do so. If you don't mind, I'll take my leave.
Suit yourself.
I mean, this goes pretty deep on shit. I was just listening to Lee Smolin, which is one of the founders of Loop Quantum Gravity, his book from '06, him talking about what exactly is going on. Pretty interesting stuff. I won't get into that now, but natural numbers and real numbers are different. There are more real numbers than natural numbers. Take real numbers as t and take natural numbers as p. It's supposed to be p equals t, according to a bunch of different mathematical indications. Make sure I have these correct, which causes widespread assumptions. T appears to be less than p. The natural numbers appear to be less than the real numbers. In 2009, a bunch of people proved, a bunch of proofs, a bunch of bullshit, and then proved that p actually does equal t, which means that the infinities surrounding natural numbers is equal to the infinities surrounding real numbers.
I always had a hunch and just assumed so, long ago.
Now, this may seem like common knowledge, but it isn't. In fact, that would be a rightly assumed common knowledge bit of information. It appears like they are. Infinity is equal to infinity. You'd think it is, but based on other bullshit that give other indications in math and science and physics and cosmology, they thought that p was less than t. They actually need mathematical proofs that number per number match up and can be checked. And so this has to do with just numbers, numerology, iteration, that kind of bullshit. But zero can also be...
Zero comes before one as far as the computers are concerned.
I'm Zeroth Enterprises, man. I gotta know about this shit. Come on.
That is simply a coincidence.
Another take on what zero is. The reason why the temperature is zero is because that's when water freezes. They didn't just pick this, dude. They're like, when does water freeze?
Oh, right about there. Oh, what's temperature? Oh.
It is the amount of energy transferred in the form of heat that requires a 1 cubic inch area of water at 70 degrees room temperature at 14 psi barometric pressure to change 1 degree Celsius. The amount of energy that it takes for that. That is a degree.
There really are reasons behind why they chose those scales. Obviously, everybody has heard of Lord Kelvin. The Kelvin scale is really what we physicists use when running actual calculations. This scale is similar to Celsius. Fucking Boltzmann strikes again. LOL. Remember, though, that now the Kelvin is defined from Boltzmann's constant. That's 1.380649 times 10 to the negative 23. This just makes sure that everything is done using Planck's constant and a cesium-133 hyperfine transition. This is to keep all time, mass, and energy levels symmetric, kinda deep.
Now Fahrenheit, I don't know where the fuck that came from. That shit don't make no sense. You're right. 0 in that is nothing. 32 in that is what the fuck.
You're just messing around now.
But Fahrenheit's horseshit. Celsius is where it's at. Essentially, Celsius is on the same scale as the Kelvin, but the real one that's used to calculate in physics is the Kelvin. What is it?
Absolute zero is equal to minus 273.15 degrees on the Celsius scale. This is also equal to minus 459.67 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale. Remember that the Fahrenheit scale was the first temperature scale to be heavily used by other scientists of the day. First defined by Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit in 1724. This scale is placed in relation to the other scales and is also used in the United States for some reason.
Absolute zero or whatever. Because everything has a temperature, because everything has motion, because everything with mass has to be moving a little bit. If it's massless, that's a different story. Now, if it's a particle that has mass, it has to be moving. It has to be vibrating, which means it has to have a temperature. And that's one particle. So of all the particles, it's the same thing. parts of the whole type of shit. But I'm trying to explain how 0 is really just a placeholder. It doesn't quite make sense to be like -5 degrees. But remember, degrees, it's a unit, but it's not like a length unit. So there are certain logical issues. You can't have negative distance. But keep this in mind, there are a lot of situations where they need to use math that go through walls and such to actually figure out the math where it applies above ground where they're going. Math that go through walls. Example of this is shooting a ball off of a cliff. Math that go through walls. It has a half parabola motion all the way to the ground, yet the math can go through the ground if you want, because the ground could be at a higher level than the base of the cliff, etc. It could be going up. It's your grid. The math can still be done even if the stuff doesn't logically make sense, like having distances below the ground. Now, a different story is negative distances, where generally you have two solutions to a problem, yet one of them is imaginary. So you can't have an imaginary distance. The distance of square root of -1. What? That don't even make sense, because what that is an I. It's imaginary. You can't actually go an imaginary distance. Just because it's imaginary math doesn't mean that it's not real math. They have to use imaginary math in electronics. Think about this. Logically, a circuit could be making a 90-degree turn, yet on the grid it looks like a right. Yet if you turn the grid upside down, it looks like a left. Yet if you turn it to the left and to the right, twist it, transform it, it's totally different according to those scales. The standard unitary grid with north going up on the Y and right going east up on the X, and vice versa for the negatives, then it's a standard way you do it. You don't have to do it that way. There could be different scenarios where you can switch it up and do it a different way. So 0 really could be some other number that isn't 0, because it doesn't mean null. It means on a scale from -5 to 5, 0 is in the middle. 5, that's where you start at. So 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 is the fifth one. We're going up. Now if you start the other way, it's the other way. It's your greater than or equal to in one unit type of deal. So what it really is telling you negative or positive. So you could do the whole math and strip the negatives, do it that way. Do the whole math, strip it and put it back into positive and do it that way. So the positive, negative, left, right, up, down, top, bottom, charm, strange is more how you might describe it, because that's how you describe the quarks. And what that means is it logically spins in a way like this. It may not even be a ball that actually looks like a circle that actually turns around like a globe. It may not even be like that. That's just a logical representation of something with a frequency, wavelength, and amplitude that can be put on a grid, on a graph, on a 2D thing. There's different stuff. There's reasons why there is a 0, but
What about how people and banks alike tend to have the capability of going under $0? I don't see a need for this, yet the banks allow it.
going below $-, I will admit that is kind of just stupid. But the fact that they're letting you borrow money the way banks work,
Negative this. Oh, there's a fee. Blah, blah.
there's no fees with this. So that's why it's like, heck, we used to do this with PayPal. Heck, we'd get around it somehow. I don't think you were supposed to do that. But I got an email addressed specifically to me telling me that they don't want to do business with me. So go figure. So this idea of 0 is kind of dumb with certain things, yet they allow it to make everything work mathematically. It's different than null. It's just the placeholder. And I kind of got into it a little bit there with real numbers. But the main issue is that we need to know the difference between a 0, which could be a placeholder, and the idea of null, which really is absence of nothing. 0. So in binary, 0 represents off, no electricity flow. 1 represents on. We know this. We can go into programming, maybe null pointer. It's a pointer that doesn't point to something. Pointers, by definition, point to things. So every pointer points to them, but you need one value that's a pointer that doesn't point. So in programming, it's like blah, 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 while blah, 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 do blah, 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 until blah, 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 blah. Okay, exit. Before the exit, usually there's a return 0 or return value from some function that you might need to pass on as a parameter to the next function. Usually at the end of a programming while loop, there is a exit of the while loop. So the null, when there's nothing there, they need something there. So they have to say something null pointer. So the idea of having a nothingness is for the purpose of having a placeholder. This is a modern idea of 0. This has been a problem over many years, many decades, dealing with these zeros. So I'm not going to go too deep into this. I wanted to go over something easy here, and I got some information about the idea of 0, the concept of 0. And so I wanted to run over a brief with 0, Z-E-R-O, the numerical digit, and how it's represented in the number line. So this is a system that it belongs to. The way that we do our decimal counting system heavily relies on 0. There are some important things about this.
Wasn't the professor supposed to be here by now? What happened?
I don't want to go too deep into this, but I just want to briefly go over a little bit of the history here. Just touch on it.
All right.
Okay. Egyptian numerals were base 10. Babylonian mathematics uses sexagesimal. Okay. Whatever. They use 60 stuff, which there is a reason for that because the sky is split up at 360 degrees. So 60 degrees goes right into that. And so the 10 didn't make sense, but it does make sense because we got 10 fingers.
For the Egyptians, it had something to do with calculating the size of maize cornfields using triangles.
So it took them a long time to do it, but the ancient Greeks didn't have a symbol for 0. They didn't use a placeholder. So it just depends on what society did what and how they described things. Some places like China use counting rods and other stuff. The symbol for 0 is just some variation of an O, like the 0, nothing inside the circle. So through the Middle Ages and above, the Arabic language was invented off of Greek with Hindu influences.
That's why they add up the way they do.
They're specific because it goes back as far as 813 AD. They've used something with base 10. There's a Hindu-Arabic numerical system, which is base 10. That's how Europe got 0 as an integer, and it came into Europe from Arabia. But they say it was, so the history might have been rewritten since I learned it, but things like that happen.
I'm back finally.
Took you long enough.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Long time no see.
I just can't believe it. It is the German genius himself in the flesh.
Greetings and salutations, Mr. Einstein.
Good day to you, gentlemen. I have just finished gathering my most recent letters to proofread before an associate of mine publishes his new theory of everything attempt. I hear that the doctor is also planning to publish some very exciting revelations. We briefly spoke of it before I decided to take part in this little science experiment, which is now amazingly allowing me to sit at your virtual round table and discuss the very serious topics of physics.
Yes, the very serious topics of physics. I missed the ability for all of us to congregate again. It makes no difference whatsoever that nowadays people are able to finally do this in virtual reality. Speaking of which, you better get that VR system working already, Mr. Sound Dude Man.
Not so fast. Let him finish this podcast and we will attempt to get back to some more business next time. I might as well ask Mr. Einstein the serious questions I have about solar system communications.
Okay, you win. I have a few questions myself regarding other unrelated matters that I will probably wait to discuss until a later date, and a little more privacy.
Yes, Dr. Hawking, we can discuss those sensitive matters later on. For now, I wanted to inform everyone about the progress my colleague has been making during his attempts at creating a new version of string theory which has a perturbative component as well as a non-perturbative component, which together in harmony appear to solve for the discrepancies that everyone has seen from the quantum jitters that somehow find a way to affect the macro world. Alas, this is exactly the reason I agree to see the work of both parties. We need a grand unified theory or something very close to it, for a great many reasons. So for now, finish what you were doing, and we will continue this in the upcoming podcast episode. Cheers. Goodbye for now, see you guys later.
Essentially, this is just a small amount of information about 0. We're going to be getting into some more science here coming up. Hope you're enjoying the show. I've gotten some positive feedback, a little negative feedback, not so much. That is how we make it better. I'm recording using different hardware this 10. I use something different on the first 10, something different on the next 10, and I'm using something different on this 10. Not necessarily to stay using this or stay doing that pattern. I'm trying out a bunch of shit, and why not do it while I'm doing it? I'll probably have some better stuff later. It's just,
I want a $1,000 setup for a big ass studio.
I don't need all that for this. This is just me talking, but I am doing the research, and all that shit is all behind the scenes. You guys don't have to worry about any of that. You can look up some of my references, you can do whatever you want, but I'm doing the references and looking up and the bullshit and then giving it to you guys. So that's the whole point of this, and that way we can put emphasis on the concepts and the importance of the science as opposed to just the delivery. But this is all this time around for episode 21. The concept of 0 of quantum foam. Quantum foam.
The Zeroth Wave Disclaimer.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the author or authors and do not necessarily reflect the particular views, thoughts, or opinions of Zeroth Wave Productions, any of its sister companies, its parent company, Zeroth Enterprises, or any other entity which had existed, will exist, or which, quote-unquote, presently must exist outside the realm of our current space-time.
Quantum Phone is produced by Zeroth Wave Productions.